You have set up VMware VCF 9. Now, one of the first things we need to do is take care of backup. Let's set it up right after this. Now that we have VCF 9 up and running, one of the first things we need to do is set up backup. And backup is for the configuration settings and the core components, but also the fleet management appliances. So this is my VCF 9 deployment. It has completed successfully. One of the first things I need to do is make sure that I download this JSON spec file and keep it safe somewhere, because this file contains all the steps from the configuration wizard. If I need to redeploy that VCF stack from scratch, from starting completely new, I don't have to fill in every step in the wizard. Now I can just import that JSON file after starting that VCF installer, right? So this is something to do when your deployment went successfully. Download that JSON file and now you're okay. All right, once deployment is completed for VCF 9, we need to go to the operations UI. That's the operations UI here. Log in with your credentials. And the first thing we need to do is set up a backup location. And now we are going to create the first backup configuration we will do using the administration option in the menu here, and then going to the SDDC manager, right? This is the place we're going to create that backup. For this to work, we need to set up a SFTP site. And the way I'm doing that is I have a Synology running here, which is providing me storage for my VCF lab environment. And then I have, in the file services of that Synology, I just enabled SFTP. And I set up a username and a password to access that SFTP service on my Synology. So that's what I'm going to do. Let's go back to operations. We need to configure a site, as you can see here. So if you click on site, you will see that there is already information filled in there, and there is my SDDC manager itself filled in as a site. And the reason why is if you don't set up a SFTP server in the configuration here, it will use the SDDC manager actually to store backups if you create backups. We don't want that. We want our backups to be offsite. So that's what we're going to do. And let's grab that information real quick so we can just copy over the information we need. Let's do that. The IP address, of course, transfer protocol is SFTP. And I will be using a VCF backup user I already created in there. And this is the password for that user. Let's enter that password. You will be presented with an SSH fingerprint. We will confirm that. But before we do that, we need to enter the path as well. This is the location on that SFTP server where the backups will actually be stored. So now we can confirm that fingerprint as well. And we want a encryption password here. So let's enter a encryption password in here as well, and then click on save. And let's confirm the changes for backup and wait for the system to actually set up that backup destination. You can see here, configure backup of VCF components, SDDC manager and NSX manager is in progress. Let's wait for that to finish. Now that's finished, we need to set up that schedule. And remember, we are doing a backup from SDDC manager. That means that SDDC manager is backed up, but also NSX manager is backed up using this setup. So let's go back to that SDDC manager configuration tab. And now we can click on edit schedule. We want a automatic backup. And we want if you would want a weekly or hourly, choose what's best for you. I will do a weekly backup. And I will run a backup every day. This will give me 7 backups. And if you need more retention beyond those 7 backups that it will store, you need to make sure that you copy over those backup files from the backup location to another location where you can keep a longer retention, right? Because this is doing maximum 7 backup files it will keep for you. So we want to do it at 3 a.m. Let's click on AM. All right. I will enforce a retention policy, and we will do 7, 7, and 7. And let's click on save. All right, the automatic backups are scheduled now for SDDC Manager and NSX Manager. Let's click on backup now to create the initial backup, and let's wait for it to finish. The status has been changed to pending. Let's refresh this page and see if it's actually finished. Yes, if you refresh it, you will see the backup has been created successfully. So this is the first step in setting up backup for VCF 9. Now the next step is to create a backup for vCenter. We've now created SDDC Manager and NSX Manager backup. We need to create vCenter backups. The way to do that is log into the vCenter management appliance. Remember, it's running default on the same IP address or FQDN that vCenter is running on, but you have to add port 5480 at the end. Here we are, and we need to click on backup here. Let me make this a little bit larger so we can see what's actually happening. Let's click on configure. Again, we need a backup location. The backup location in this case is the same SFTP server as I have used for the SDDC and NSX Manager, but this time I will use another path, another subfolder. So let's do that. And in order to set up the backup location, the format is a little bit different. You can see here, we need to specify protocol, server address, port number, and then the subfolder actually. So let's see if I already have set up something for that. We can just copy this one over and paste it in here. As you can see here, it is SFTP, the IP address of my SFTP server, in this case my Synology, the port number, that's port 22, and this is the subfolder I will be using to store the vCenter backup. Again, I will use that same VCF backup user in here. Let's copy over the password real quick for that user. That's fine. All right, we want to have a backup schedule. I will leave this at default, and of course we want to encrypt our backup. So let me create that password. All right, and we want to retain 7 backups. We will be backing up the supervisor control plane and task events, etc. And of course, the inventory and configuration of vCenter will be backed up default, right? So let's click on create. All right, the backup is activated. It is set up. You can see here the option to backup now is available as well. If we want to create a backup, a ad hoc, a manual backup, if you click on backup now, you will need to enter all the information here again, or you can just enter the information from the backup schedule, right? Remember, you will need to supply your passwords, encryption password, etc. here again. So if I want to complete this manual backup, let's supply that information. This is for the backup user. Let me copy over that password real quick. Copy, and that's the password for the backup user to connect to that SFTP server on my Synology. I will supply a password to encrypt the backup file. All right, and I want to include that control pane there as well, and click on start. Now we just have to wait for it to finish the manual backup. And there we have it. That manual backup is complete. Of course, the schedule will run according to what we've set it up here. The next step is to backup VCF operations. And the way to do that is to create a image-based backup. That's what we are calling it at Broadcom. Basically, it is a VM backup you need to create with the backup solution you have configured for backing up VMs on vCenter. In my case, I am using a Synology, so I have set up Active Backup for Business. It is already connected to that vCenter, which has been deployed during the VCF 9 installation. And I can already see all the virtual machines on that vCenter. And we need to back up operations. This is the image-based backup, so to speak, we are going to create. So for this, I'm going to create just a task, which will then itself create a full integrated backup of operations. VCF9 ops, yes, that's what I'm going to do. It is selected, yes, it's selected as well. Let's click on next. This is the storage I'm going to use. Click on next. And do you want to enable compression, etc.? You can do that. And of course, we will use CBT. In this way, we know that only the change files will be backed up during an incremental. And let's see if there are other options here. No, that's it. And we are nearly done. I will set the schedule now for a manual backup. You can, of course, enable the scheduled backup, and then you can set up retention here as well, right? If you enable the retention policy, you can set up the retention here as well. So for now, I'm just going to create that backup task, and I will do the backup later. Right? So I am not going to backup now. So this is the step you need to complete to actually backup VCF operations. Now we can, of course, create a component level backup for VMware Cloud Foundation operations. The way to do that is, let's go back to our operations here, and we need to go to Lifecycle, the fleet management, and then click on Lifecycle. And we can click here on Settings. And on the settings, we have the SFTP settings. Let's enter the IP address of my Synology in here. And just to make sure, I want to copy over. Port is 22. The transfer protocol is SFTP. Username is that VCF user I created on my Synology. And let's select a password. This is my Synology password. This is just an alias for that. And the actual password for that Synology is, let's copy over that from here. All right. This is the password for the VCF backup user on Synology. All right, and the username, that is VCF backup, of course. So now that I've added it to the internal password manager, I have it right here. Select a password. That is the password I have for the Synology passwords. All right. The backup directory, I'm going to copy over that as well. Every time I use that same FTP server, but every time I use a different directory to store the files. In this case, I'm going for the VCF ops directory in the home directory. And the encryption passphrase, let's create a alias for the encryption passphrase, Synology backup encryption passphrase. The password is, let's set that real quick. Let's enter the password. All right. This is a passphrase for that's one we're going to use. And the username here is VCF backup. This is the user again for my Synology. You can see here that when I add a password to the internal password manager of VCF ops, the only fields required are the fields that have a red asterisk. These are just descriptions, right? So let's click on that. Let's select that again. Select the passphrase, and that is the encryption passphrase alias I just created. Okay, fetch fingerprint. And now that I have the fingerprint, I will say save. If we scroll up in this window, we will see that the SFTP configuration is saved successfully. And now this configuration will also be pushed to the automation and identity broker. So that means if I trigger a backup there, they will know where to store that backup file, of course. Now that we've done that, we need to actually enable the backup. So let's click on backup settings, just right above that SFTP settings. And we can see that there are 3 components defined in here. For these 3 components, there is already a backup schedule set, but it is deactivated. We need to activate that. So let's click on the first one, the management node. Let's click on edit, enable retention policy, and we will say every day at 3 o'clock, it needs to create a backup and keep, for my case, 7 last backups. Click on save. Now that's enabled. We'll click on edit for the next one as well. Let's do 4 o'clock. Try to spread the backups. And let's keep 7 backups here as well. And for the other one, let's do this, enable that. And let's say 5 o'clock. And let's click on save. Now we have the component-based backups also scheduled within VCF operations. And that is the basic backup configuration for VCF 9 done. We now have the flexibility to just restore an individual component. If we misconfigure something, we don't have to redeploy the whole VCF 9 stack. As always, thank you for watching. I hope you've learned something new in this video. Don't forget to click on the like and subscribe button below the video. That helps out my channel a lot, and you will get a notification when I post a new video. Of course, if you have comments, leave them in the comment section below and I'll try to get to them as soon as possible. For now, take care and see you in the next video. Bye.